Hi, Marguerite Graham. I know.
We're gonna all rise. That's good timing.
Well, because I think it's
This court is now in session. Please be seated.
wow.
Well, good afternoon. I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to look out into this room. This is the first public celebratory gathering that we have held in the appeals court since before the pandemic, and probably for several months before the pandemic came into full force. It really is so nice to see everyone here, and of course, to know that you are all here for such a wonderful occasion. I want to introduce the other members of the panel sitting with me on the bench today. Of course, speaking on behalf and representing the former colleagues and friends of Chief Justice Armstrong. To my left and your right is Justice Cynthia Cohen, retired from the appeals court. To my right and your left is our guest of honor, former Chief Justice Christopher Armstrong. And we are all waiting to see what is behind the curtain. I want to extend a special welcome to the members of his family who are here with us today. His wife, Liz Armstrong, his son, Ben Armstrong, with his wife, Ann, his daughter, Lucy Hinkes, and her three children, Willem, Colin, and Rowan, and also Father Paris, who is not, strictly speaking, a member of his family, but is considered as such. I also want to welcome the many other friends and colleagues of Chief Justice Armstrong, including SJC and former appeals court justices Fran Spina, Ellie Seifer, Scott Kafker, and Dalila Wendland. Of course, Supreme Judicial Court Chief Justice Kimberly Budd, retired Supreme Judicial Court Justice Judith Cowan, United States Court of International Trade and former appeals court judge Gary Katzman, former appeals court Chief Justice Phil Raposa, just back from service on the United Nations War Crimes Tribunal in Cambodia, literally just back, and all of the other current and former appeals court justices and staff, many of Chief Justice Armstrong's former law clerks, and other dear friends. As I mentioned, today has been a long time in the making, and we have all been through a lot during COVID. The program we have today will be brief but celebratory, and will include remarks from Justice Cohen, and speaking as a colleague and friend, and then some reflections by our guest of honor. And without further ado, Justice Cohen.
Thank you, Chief Justice Green, for inviting me to say a few words at this very special event. It is such a privilege to be back at the appeals court for the presentation of Chief Justice Armstrong's portrait. His service to this court is unparalleled. 28 years as an Associate Justice, 6 years as Chief Justice, and 3 years as a recall justice. No one has contributed more to this institution. Chris Armstrong was here from the beginning. In 1972, when the appeals court was established, he was chosen at the age of 36 to be one of the original 6 justices. They created the appeals court from scratch, without benefit of space to call their own, and with an overwhelming backlog of cases that had been transferred by the SJC even before any new entries arrived. The court demanded Herculean efforts from its judges. Until 2001, it was chronically understaffed, despite 2 early expansions that resulted in a total of 14 judges. And there were other challenges as well, including periods in the 1990s when Chief Justice Warner was incapacitated by illness. It was Chris Armstrong, the Senior Associate Justice, who graciously navigated the court through those difficult times. Then, when Chief Justice Warner announced his retirement, it was clear who should succeed him. The other judges on the appeals court expressed their unanimous support for the appointment of Chris Armstrong, and Governor Cellucci obliged. Chief Justice Armstrong immediately accomplished what was thought to be impossible: a game-changing increase in the number of judges. As a result of his efforts, the legislature authorized 11 new positions to be filled the following year. This dramatic expansion paved the way for a new era at the appeals court. For the first time in the court's history, it became possible to chip away at the backlog and eventually keep abreast of the cases. I had the good fortune to be selected as one of the expansion judges, and that was my first opportunity to get to know Chris Armstrong on a personal basis. His leadership during the expansion was extraordinary. Over a period of less than a year, he welcomed not only the 11 new judges, but also the additional support staff that were needed to assist them. He made sure that the new judges were able to get up to speed by asking the court's senior judges to act as mentors and by arranging for training on topics like effective opinion writing. He himself was an exemplary writer with a knack for producing clear, persuasive, and concise opinions. Despite having so many duties to juggle, he took the time to give valuable feedback to the new judges whenever he reviewed their drafts. Most importantly, Chief Justice Armstrong strove to assimilate the expansion judges into the culture of the court and to foster a sense of esprit. He promoted collegiality by encouraging judges old and new to gather over lunch in one of the conference rooms so we could get to know each other better. He helped us to understand that the work of an appellate judge is collaborative, that we should be open to finding common ground, and when common ground is elusive, we should disagree without rancor. Chief Justice Armstrong's personal qualities endeared him to his colleagues and contributed to his success as a leader. He has a quiet dignity, but also a warm and approachable manner. He is a patient listener who values what others have to say, and he is skilled at mediating differences of opinion. He is a man who never needs to raise his voice to be heard. These traits come naturally to him, and during his time on the court, they served him well, whether he was interacting with the lawyers and litigants who came before him, his fellow judges, the appeals court staff, or members of the legislature. I think, though, that if I had to single out one attribute that I associate most with Chris Armstrong, it would be his devotion. His unmatched devotion to the appeals court is surpassed only by his devotion to his community and his family, his lovely wife Liz, his children, and his grandchildren. Today, his portrait is being unveiled, but soon it will hang over this bench, a reminder of the remarkable man who dedicated nearly his entire adult life to the Massachusetts Appeals Court. That could not be more fitting. There is no finer person to grace these walls than Chris Armstrong.
Thank you, Justice Cohen. That was lovely and perfectly accurate. This is a proud moment for this court and a big day for you, Chief. I know that I share the eagerness of everyone else in the room to hear your reflections on this occasion.
Good. Well, I think I look at the people in front of me, and it makes me think of a picture which is on the back wall of the court. The person there was a judge of this court. He came from Ropes and Gray. He was one of the expansion judges. His name was John Marshall. And sadly, after far too short a stint on the court, he passed away of esophageal cancer. And I don't think his colleagues have ever been sorrier to see someone go. He was the loveliest man. He had a peculiar trait that if there was, at the slightest occasion, he would thank you. And if he said it once, he would say it 15 times. In a long discourse, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. I remember once I gave him that slight provocation to say thank you. And he arrived with a book about the Boston Red Sox. One of the crucial years, very exciting year. I remember it as a kid. And he wrote a foreword to it, which told me 18 times, thank you. Well, I look at the people who are here, and I think to myself, everyone here, thank you, thank you. Thank you for coming in the first place. For some of you, it was not easy. It was very hard, I know. For others, it has just been so long, I can't believe that you even remember me. Because Liz and I have been in hiding for the whole period of the pandemic, and we're just getting out again. I think the first occasion that we appeared at was the very sad calling hours for our deceased Justice Bill Cowan, and Judy is here, and we would so much miss Bill. What a wonderful person. But he was, I look at everybody and I think, thank you all. I look at my law clerks. You have, I see on the list scheduled to come, there were law clerks from the very early days back in the 1970s when I became a judge in '72. And people like Larry Donahue and Dana Roden, Shannon Solo, Nick Stalakis, Josh Orr, Jason Marshall, Rob Hale, Tom Carter, who was on the staff of this court and has been a leading staff attorney. My law clerks were invaluable to me. I think of them as more responsible for what good I did than I myself. I think of myself as constantly taking credit for what other people did, and it's certainly true of my law clerks. I think of let me back up a little bit. I think of the appeals court in my mind as having two births. It was born in 1972, the year the legislation passed, and 6 of us were appointed judges of the appeals court. I was 36. I really probably had very little reason for being there, other than that the Governor Frank Sargent thought highly of me, and his legal counsel Bill Young, later Bill Young over at the federal courthouse. must have told him that I was okay to a point. But I remember back in those days when people would look at pictures to try to identify the new court, and they'd see 5 people they recognized because the others were quite prominent at the bar. And then they'd say, "Who is the kid that's with them?" And I've been told that story several times by people that happened to. But I think of those original judges in Birth One as the people who taught me how to be a judge. Incidentally, they taught me how to be a lawyer, but they taught me how to be a judge. I remember Alan Hale, the Chief Justice of the court, would literally teach me how to read a transcript. It's not what you think it is. It's the reason the lawyer makes what looks like a mistake is because he's trying to avoid something and they explained the complexities, the Byzantine complexities of running a lawsuit to me that way. I think of the others of the original judges, Reuben Goodman, Don Grant, M. Kevel. These were giants of the bar at that time. From the time it was born, the appeals court had terrible backlogs. The very first day we sat, we had several months worth of cases on our docket already. And we never stopped being way, way behind. I remember those years, especially when I was sitting in for Chief Justice Warner, going over to the Appropriations Committee, and they would, and I would begin my remarks after they'd heard from all the other courts. To defend my budget, I'd say the first thing I have to let you know is that the appeals court is the basket case of the court system. We are years behind, and we kept being years behind. We got increases to 10 judges. That was a smashing set of appointments. John Graney, Raya Drebin, Rudy Cass, Charlotte Peretta, wonderful, wonderful judges. And then we went through another 4-judge expansion, so we were 14 judges. And all of the expansions had come several years after they were needed. They all began with huge backlogs. And it didn't stop until the second birth of the appeals court, which was the expansion in 2000. And I see in this room some of the people that were responsible for getting us there, up to 25 judges. I got a lot of the credit for it, but the credit really went first to my colleagues who sheepishly decided to go hat in hand to the governor and the legislature and ask for 3 more judges. And then Len Lewin, who was chief counsel to Governor Paul Cellucci, and the governor himself, suggested that instead I ask for 5, because if I ask for 5, we'll have something to trade with and still hope to come out with our 3 judges. And then I was called into the office of then Speaker of the House, Thomas Finneran, who knew there was a problem, called me in, Bill Kennedy, who was with us here today, next to Steve Carroll. He called me into Finneran's office. He was his right-hand man. And Finneran quizzed me about how many judges I really needed, how many judges could decide how many cases in what period of time, how big did panels have to be, how big is the backlog, how long would it take to cut through that backlog and still face the new cases coming in every year. And he and I, sitting with pen and pencil, working out the figures, which I had courtesy of Alex McNeil, sitting in the back of the courtroom. He was my phenomenal chief administrative judge. I don't know what you'd call him. Should be called executive director of the operation. He fed me with such great figures that I had all the figures at hand for Speaker Finneran, who was obviously a nuts and bolts man. And he calculated that we needed the 11 new judges. And then he sort of left it there, said thank you very much. And Bill Kennedy ushered me out of the office, and I remember him saying to me, you know, he's serious. I said, Bill, I don't have offices enough. I don't know what I would do if that many came. And I got some good advice that if you can get the judges, the rest will take care of itself. It may take a little bit of time, but it'll take care of itself. And so we had the second birth of the appeals court. And the key people in that picture were Tom Dwyer, who was then the president of the Boston Bar Association. The Mass Bar was great. The Globe was great. There, Rudy Cass, who still had lots of press ties from the days when he represented the press, paved the way for interviews by the editorial boards of the Globe and the Herald, and they all came out with editorials strongly praising the idea of 11 new judges. And it was, the legislation passed amazingly. No one ever believed that the Democratic legislature would give a Republican governor 11 new judicial appointments. And I was told darkly by people that these would all be political appointments, and don't get my hopes up. They went into the Judicial Nominating Commission, which Governor Cellucci had kept going from Frank Sargent's time. And when the appointments came out, they lent instant credibility to the new court. It was top people in the bar. It was judges like who were seasoned, well-known judges: Gordon Dorfer, Jim McHugh, Joe Grasso, very prominent judges, lawyers, and included John Mason from Ropes and Gray, and it included Cindy Cohen, who was about to become, she was on the ladder up to becoming chairman of the Mass Bar. She was actually secretary of the Mass Bar at that time. And she gave all that up to come to the appeals court, along with a lot of others who were just wonderful, wonderful colleagues. Mentioned Gary Katzman, who worked not as a judge over at the federal court, whose brother was a judge down in the Second Circuit. And Gary was one of the new judges. He was, there's a long story that goes with the swearing in by a governor who didn't think he should do swearings in publicly, that they should all be done quietly in his office. And so we quietly arranged a very public induction, Gary. And the group of people who came in to speak in his behalf was led by Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer, and was followed by someone who looked exactly like Gary. And wait a minute, Gary, there are two of you. They were indistinguishable. It was his brother from New York. They were identical twins. It was all a wonderful thrill, did wonders for the credibility of the appeals court. Gary has since been taken onto the federal judiciary down at the Court of International Trade in New York, and where he's a judge there. And so anyway, we have this, for the first time in its existence, the appeals court got enough judges to do the work. For the first time, and you could calculate that if we kept up the regular pace of hearings and decisions, that we would be caught up in 3 years. And I had promised Tom Finneran, the speaker, that in 3 years we would be caught up, meaning we would have heard all the cases by the end of February that needed to be heard that court year. We kept that promise, and the promise has been kept up ever since through successive Chief Justices, Phil Raposa, through Scott Kafker, who is now on the Supreme Judicial Court, and through Mark Green, who kept us up to date even though we were in the pandemic and we couldn't run open court. It was an amazing feat. I remember once from my youth, I was working as executive clerk for a man named G. Joseph Toro, who was he happened to be Governor Volpe's first legal counsel in his first term, who was appointed Chief Justice of the Superior Court. And I worked for him for about 3/4 of a year before he sent me over to the State House to work for Governor Volpe. But during that time, his problem was the Superior Court, which at that time had about 17, 20 judges, simply could not keep up with the work. They had 30,000 entries a year. And I remember he used to preach to the bar, to legislators and whatnot, quoting from a Florida judge who was faced with the same problem of chronic backlog. He said, "There is no substitute for having enough judges to do the work." So I was proud to be appointed part of the appeals court at the beginning and to get it off the ground. I was prouder still to have been instrumental in expanding the court to the point where we finally did have enough judges to do the work. And with that, I was about to face mandatory retirement age. And so I left, but the court has kept up. It was really wonderful. To my colleagues, all I can say for the sheer joy of working with them, thank you, thank you, thank you. It was, I cannot tell you the pleasure of working with the group of people that successive governors have appointed to this court. I won't mention one because I won't know where to stop. But I've had great judges. They were greater lawyers than I. They were greater writers than I. They were people that I really looked up to, and yet all of them came together and supported the court and made it into a happy place to work. There was, not too long ago, there was a staff attorney, one of the leading staff attorneys. I cannot tell you how valuable the staff attorneys on this court are. His name was Larry Ward, and I apologized when he was on his deathbed, and I apologized to him for not getting down to see him, but explained this was the early days of the pandemic, that I couldn't risk it. I couldn't risk it to him or to me. He said, no, don't mention it. When I think back to working with you on the appeals court, I felt I was part of a big team, a team that worked happily and together to do great things. And I would like to echo what Larry said. I would like to thank all the judges of this court, past and those through the time when I left the court. It was such a pleasure to work with you. You have my great eternal thanks, and for your presence here today, in some cases I know with hardship. I appreciate it so very much. Thank you all, and thank all of you who are here.
Thank you, as John Mason would say, very, very, very much, Chief Justice Armstrong. We're fortunate indeed, as we approach the milestone of the 50th anniversary of the court's creation, to have you as a first-person historian of so much of our history. And as Justice Cohen observed, and as you reflected upon, your tenure as Chief Justice was marked by some of the most significant developments in the court's history. You said that getting the 11 new judges here, everything would take care of itself. Well, you know better than that. It didn't take care of itself. We were under your care, and for that, all of us are deeply grateful. But speaking for myself, and I suspect I also speak for former Chief Justices Raposa and Kafker in this regard, you set the bar very high for all of us who have followed you as Chief, and I'm aware nearly every day of the implicit comparison that challenges me to step up my game. But now, it is my great pleasure to ask that the portrait be unveiled and to formally accept it on behalf of the court. As Justice Cohen mentioned, it will hang on the wall behind this bench, just as the portrait of the court's first Chief Justice, Alan Hale, hangs behind the bench in the Hale courtroom across the way. I'm also pleased to announce that, in like fashion, this courtroom is now formally renamed the Christopher J. Armstrong Courtroom. The nameplate has already been installed and has been uncovered during these proceedings. That brings us to a conclusion of these proceedings. I want to thank the court officers for their assistance in managing the proceeding, our clerk, Joe Stanton, for clerking the session, our IT team, particularly including Jeff Travers and Tom Carter, for setting up the live stream, which we were fortunate to just get going this morning, but it allowed those who could not be with us today to follow this ceremony online. And I want especially, as always, to thank the incomparable Monique Duarte, who has, over the past several years, worked with Chief Justice Armstrong toward the production of this portrait through the pandemic. The sitting, as Ron Spatty reminded me this morning, occurred in February of 2020, so just before everything went crazy. And then, as I mentioned at the very beginning, we had that long hiatus before we were finally able to bring people back together again today. And that didn't just happen either. Monique is really the driving force behind all of these events. We take it for granted, but without her, none of this could have happened. She handled the coordination in very challenging circumstances. And by the way, we're a little rusty at doing this sort of thing. You are all now invited to join us in a reception in the Rose Library. The court officers will lead you there, and with that, these proceedings are adjourned.